I love how Gary says, the truth is undefeated. The truth is undefeated.
What's the alternative?
Right.
Withholding the truth is the exact same thing as lying.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you want to live a lie or do you want to live in truth? And there's really no in between.
Yeah.
Like there's literally no in between. And when you start thinking about that, then it puts everything in this perspective of like seeking the truth in all areas of your life, which is a very interesting place to be, but it's a very growth mindset. It's a very expansive place to be mentally.
Oh yeah.
So to me, it's just about living in truth. I did a podcast with this guy who now I hired as a coach. His name's Sean Whalen. And I had him on the podcast and I asked, hey, what's one thing you quit doing that enables you to succeed? It's like a question I always ask these people. And he said, lying. I said, about what? He said, everything. I was like, geez. He's like, everything. He's like, I lied to everyone about everything. And it was just that idea, that whole thing, like, yeah, I'm doing great. How are you? I'm fine, great, awesome. And he had a gun in his mouth one night and realized that like none of this stuff matters. It's all about living in truth. And that's a lot to unpack. But this idea of not just living in truth when it's comfortable, but always telling the truth. And so with a lot of my content lately that we've been putting out, like I've been exposing a lot of stuff about myself that hasn't been comfortable to put out there. But by doing so, now the messages that I'm receiving, now the conversations that I'm having with people are so much more real and so much more impactful. And there's this concept I keep talking about lately, I can't stop talking about it. It's the idea that you can drown in 3 inches of water. And that's where 99% of people live.
So it was Mark Twain that said, if you always tell the truth, you never have to worry about what you say, right? And Sean Whalen talks a lot about, so we've been working a lot on this living in truth and what it means to live in truth. And I think part of living in truth is being able to eliminate the assumptions for other people. Because if you're constantly bringing truth to the conversation, then you don't leave things up to the other person's interpretation, the other person's imagination to figure out what's really going on. Like if you're constantly like living out truth, then they understand, like they know what you're trying to do. So in the context of like where I started with putting content on social media, I'm starting to think now of like, okay, yeah, today's episode 157 of the Daily Bread vlog. But what if it's someone's first time ever seeing it? Do they understand the truth and what we're trying to get out in every one of these episodes that was really established in the first few episodes? Are they understanding that, seeing episode 157 as the first, or are we forcing them to make these gigantic assumptions? Because they don't know what we're really trying to do. And so it's just trying to constantly keep, I think, these core principles and these truths that I want to live and that I want to put out there to the world.
Like it's just the greatest feeling of all time, just to live in it, just to put it all out there and you'll never not care what others think, but not let the opinions of others affect your actions and what you're going to do anyway. And man, it's been the biggest impact that I've made on myself. And then I've seen it play out with others, and it's just all I want to do now. So it's all I want to do.
And I think the last thing that I would say about the vast majority is that you're liars. And what do I mean by liars? So withholding the truth is the exact same thing as lying. And chances are when you walked in here today, you probably walked up to someone and you said, hey man, how are you? Or hey, how are you? And they said, great, how are you? Great. And you lied. You're not great. You know, be like, hey man, how was your day? Oh, it was awesome. Well, what if it sucked? Like you would have probably said it was awesome if we were at some random networking event. But to be able to say, man, today sucked because this happened, and to be able to have a real conversation, well, you know, tell me about that. You know, do you mind if I give you some feedback on that? Like having real conversations about the things that every single person in here is going through something right now. In one area of their life, maybe in all areas of their life, me included. We all have stories, we all have struggles, we all have pain. We're just too freaking
terrified to talk about it in public. And we're too freaking terrified to open up and tell you like, man, I'm struggling in this one area because I think you're gonna think less of me. And if you don't know the real me and my secrets and what I'm really going through, I can feel absolutely alone. Because I'm sitting here thinking, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I did yesterday. You don't know what I did last night. You don't know what I'm battling from this past month or what I'm going through right this very second. And it gives you the ability to be surrounded by people but feel the loneliest you've ever been. And so until we start putting intentional effort into creating that space for others, because for you, like, you needed space to be able to talk about it. Somebody needs to create that. And so, a lot of us raise their hands, and a lot of you are lying, saying that you have these conversations with people a lot, that you have somebody that you can talk to. But even if you do, that's great. Now it's your responsibility to create that space for somebody else, because the majority don't. I love this real, recognize real. Like, people want to connect with real people. And I think the only way to do that is by being vulnerable and by being transparent. And I think if people realize how much strength there is in sharing the good, bad, and the ugly, that they would realize, like, that's the only way you can build strong relationships. And at the end of the day, like, relationships are all that matter. So I think it's just being able to be vulnerable, like telling someone that, like, hey, like, I know you are Superman, like, I know you want to take on the world and you think you're invincible, but do you realize that by sharing your insecurities and by sharing what pain you've been through, that it will make you more invincible? And I'll challenge you on your definition of vulnerability. If we're looking at the definition of vulnerability as like, here's a piece of armor and there's a vulnerability right here, yes, I would say that that is the same as weakness, but I would view vulnerability in this way as strength, ultimate strength, and the being able to show emotion. Because if you had somebody come up on stage that was vulnerable, you would say that person's being courageous. But we all look at vulnerability and we say, oh, that person, it's a sign of weakness. It's the ultimate form of strength. The reason why it's so important for men to connect on a deeper level, you've all heard iron sharpens iron, but really it's in those deep conversations, those deep connections made between one man and another, that iron is sharpened. When you have someone that you look up to, or someone that will hold you accountable to the things that you need to be held accountable to, that's ultimately where the true growth is going to happen in your life. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And the reality is, us as men, we're all still children on the inside. And I think we need community. We need other men that we can surround ourselves with to be able to have the conversations that aren't had on a regular basis, to be able to have the conversations that are usually left untold. And I think it's through those conversations, it's through that space created amongst men when they get together and can be honest and vulnerable and transparent with one another. It's through those conversations that we will ultimately become the best versions of each of ourselves. This whole idea of creating space isn't just things that men do for one another. We're creating space for our kids and getting to understand more about how to create space, to create an environment where your kid truly feels as though they can come to you and talk to you about anything, that there is no judgment, even though you're their dad, that there is no judgment, that there's validation, whatever they're feeling, that you're not going to say, that's nothing, or you're not going to overreact, that you're going to give them that time to where they can experience those things. I listen to a lot of stuff, read a lot of stuff. Recently, I've gotten into this. If you guys know Sadhguru, but Sadhguru he's incredible. I watched this video the other day. He said, only in America, and he said, I hate this, only in America do you hear people say, I was raised Catholic, I was raised Baptist, I was raised in a conservative home. He's like, you raise cattle. You don't raise humans. And it was this idea of, I want to cultivate my kids, meaning I want to allow my children to experience the things that they're going to experience one way or the other, but not to have them be influenced so heavily by me. Then they go to school and they're influenced so heavily by their teachers and by the other students and by other peers and mentors that are in their life, that it's all about just cultivating a relationship with your kid, that you have trust in them, that at the end of the day, you're always there. You've always got their back. But having grown up myself in a very, very conservative home, I can tell you it didn't stop me from doing those things. I just didn't tell them about it. And so I would rather be in an environment where my son felt like he could tell me the things that he was doing and the things that he was going through than me not know and him still doing it. And I think there's probably many studies and research that could show that by being able to have that open communication, that they're probably going to have less pain and less struggles down the road from fear of having to hide it. And then those days when they do go off to college and now they have a little bit more freedom. But this idea of just cultivating that throughout their life and holding that space to where they don't feel judged, I think is so huge.